The East does not like to put things in formula form, but they have the notion of it. They refer to Our Blessed Lady as the All-Holy One in the feminine, the Panagia. And if one attends the liturgy, one notices how, at the mention of Our Blessed Lady, instinctively the people, if they are sitting at all, will stand up and cross themselves, not once but 3 times. She's there. She's always there. In fact, classically, she's physically there. If you look at the iconostasis, she is on the right and the Lord is on the left. I have it also like that in my little chapel. One cannot separate the mother and the son. There are consequences. Logically, if one believes in the Incarnation, one cannot but believe in the care that the Almighty would, from all eternity, have given to the preparation for his own tabernacle. It makes sense. Our faith is logical. Take out one bit and it all crumbles. It's fairly close to us, the dogmatic definition of what was always believed. 1950, I believe it was All Saints' Day. Some of us would have been living when the Pope who did it proclaimed it, even if we weren't alive at the date. It was a time of grace for the Church. At that point, he was already, with courage, extending the authority he had, taking up what had already been initiated by Pius IX, now Blessed Pius IX, with the Immaculate Conception. Again, always there, but not put on paper. With regard to Our Blessed Lady, one has but to observe her power right now. We are living in the age of Mary. Never in human history have we had so much Marian intervention and action here on earth. In fact, just by chance, yesterday I saw something out of the blue which came up. It was a statue of Our Blessed Lady coming alive. It was changing colour, visibly and repetitively before the eyes of all those praying. And in our own lives, probably we will have had testimonies, perhaps not dramatic, but real. Indeed, I remember more than one conversation. Both, I believe, no, one was in a Welsh context and one an Italian one. The Welsh context was this. A friend of mine was dying. I believe he was being sliced up on a railway line. But he saw this beautiful lady appearing, and he only lost one arm, but he survived. I know him, a good Catholic of my age. The one in Italy, it was a good lady I knew well, who was in a terrible accident. And as she headed for the collision, she saw a beautiful lady, because she had a great devotion to Our Blessed Lady, and she was there between her body and the collision, and she survived. Another was in a French context. It was in our monastery, but it was in France. It was this. A young person was drowning. He was going under, I believe in the sea itself. And as he was going down, he saw a beautiful lady who pulled him to the rescue. Probably you too will have had some kind of testimony of that nature. It's part of our life. And why should it not be? Heaven is closer to us than we think. And she is, right now, on earth, more active than ever before, I mean also in dramatic ways. Places of intervention and apparition. Which, by the way, would also pose the question, is there a reason for that? And I would submit that perhaps there is. Because remember, from her vantage point, she can see and know more than we can. And perhaps there is more down the line and close to us than we think in regard to what might upset society and indeed civilization as we know it. Why? Because there is a pattern. In the past, it was the same. The Marian Age began, it is said, in 1830, when she appeared, before things started to move badly in France. And then she came again. She came to La Salette, she came to Lourdes. And in fact, we know that Catherine Labouré, when she heard that she was back in Lourdes this time, said, "C'est la même, it's the same one." And then Fatima, dramatic, very dramatic indeed. And by then we have contraptions able to photograph things. The whole circuit and sequel of events which did or did not happen at Garabandal is still in abeyance. But we know that the bishops of recent times have been not against it but for it. So the dossier is reopened big time. And by then we have not just photographs but cine. We have films. Miracles before our eyes. And by the way, as long as the Blessed Virgin is on earth, she is also very much bringing with her the sun as the center of our gaze. For both in Knock and, if it's true, in Garabandal, we have the Lord center stage, and the message is Eucharistic. Indeed, she was warning us that the Son, her Son, was being given less honor. The cup was already filling. But she was trying to hold up her Son's arm. Now, do you see what that's saying? Things have got worse since then. That was the 60s. Now, she's coming a lot in different continents, and also in a very Eucharistic way. Look at Akita. And this is a constant in the equation. My son is not being well handled. We cannot separate the two. Remember that, especially in the old rite, when we try to handle the Lord as she would have done, with awe and respect. So, all that we have is logical, and it all starts with the Annunciation, when the full of grace is acclaimed as such, and asked for humanity's permission to act. And we know the way in which, at that point, the whole of creation was in poise. The angel was on one knee, the stars and the moon, the earth was in fear and trembling. Will it be yes or no? And it was, after a question, let it be, fiat. And then it all started. That's why Nazareth is actually the point of intersection. Nazareth is the point of heaven coming down. Already in her womb, heaven was there. But the womb was prepared. And if you look carefully at what's going on here, it's all the logical consequence of that. There are angels, and indeed the whole of creation, adoring the manifestation of the Incarnation. And all these saints, whether they're monks in grottos or magi on the way, are all heading for the center of the universe, which is what has come from the womb of the Blessed Virgin. And then the glory on top is but the consequence. As the ray of light came from that cloud, and it was the Incarnation, so too her Assumption is a return, a homeward bound movement, which is our own. Which brings me to where I want to land. Homeward bound. Right now, there are, right throughout Ireland, and indeed right over the globe, families paying a lot to get joy. How much calculation is made and how much earnings are spent so as to acquire joy by taking the body somewhere. Observe. I remember one day in France, we were on our walk in the Carthusian house, and the prior muttered something as he saw a car full of young people. The temperature was about 30 degrees, and they were having officially a great time. He was very ironic. Ils pensent qu'ils auront un bel temps. They think they're having a great time. Indeed, these are the people who would come out and sit by the car or stand by it and then get out a camera and fabricate a smile to photograph the moment of official joy. But often, if one looks into what's going on inside the car, one will see scenes, tension, lack of patience, unpleasant words, things unprogrammed and going wrong. The joy very quickly goes through the window. The joy over which they had a right does not come, and they are disgruntled. They paid for their joy, and it didn't come. There's something wrong. Jacques Fesch, in the 50s, was keen on getting a sailing boat. He would do anything to get his sailing boat, because once alone on the sea he would have joy. He got into a shop and with a revolver threatened the owner. He wanted a big sum of money. The money didn't come, but some did. But of course he was caught by the police and started to shoot. In 1957 he was guillotined. However, by then he'd been touched by grace, and so he was homeward bound. But it's a good case of people who will do anything and travel anywhere to get what they cannot get inside themselves. I want to leave this with you, my friends. Where are you going this summer? Are you going outside yourself, or can you also find joy without moving an inch? Are your resources sufficient for that inward journey? Because if you cannot be at home in peace within yourself, no matter what you pay, you will find the same person there too. But home, then, is coming more quickly than we think. Just the day before yesterday, I was with a friend of mine, and her son works all the time for the ambulances. That day, he'd been very upset. A boy of about 19 had to be rescued. It wasn't a car injury, he'd actually fallen off something in the course of some work. Was he going to survive or not? They had him in the ambulance, and he was still conscious, and he was asking my friend, am I going to die? But he himself felt he was petering out. And in the language that he knew, the only language that he knew, he said, I am something, and died. That wasn't the best way to die, a big swear word a few seconds before facing the Almighty. Compare that with this moment in time when Our Lady left her immaculate body. Imagine the angels waiting for her. Imagine the sun waiting for her. Imagine the embrace. And imagine the crown and the throne. Where do we fit in? As that same woman's mother said with regard to her husband, who has now died of cancer, none of us gets out of here alive. So too, it regards us. We're all playing into extra time. So it's as well to be aware that whether we are actually here or anywhere else, we have to behave right now as though just this moment were the last I had. That's the only way to be sure that when it comes to the end, we'll be homeward bound. The 15th of August. Lines composed on this day in the early 80s in Selignac Charterhouse, and then put to music by my spiritual father, Dom Lawrence Beverno of Ampleforth. Did once those little feet walk, run, play, dance from street to street, in that embalmed promised land, where earth and heaven walked hand in hand, and in that tiny infant breast, that ages would one day call blessed, beat, palpitate at childhood's joys, and fondly hug its simple toys. Did that dark hair blow in the breeze beside those Galilean seas, and in that tender full-bloomed rose, now what each growing maiden knows, and was the eternal song of youth, heard in that gentle, gentle mouth, and couldst thou know what waited thee, locked womb of locked virginity? And did she know a harder time? Did that rose droop 'neath fiercer clime? And in the depth of that deep heart, one day cry out, torn, ripped apart? And didst thou, Mary, hear thy son say, woman, and cry out, 'tis done? Sweet breast, wast healed or rent anew, as who had milked thee smaller grew? And mother, where dost thou lie now? What secrets doth that breast now know? And is it true, as these men say, that thou didst leave us on this day, not as a common child of Eve, that gasping doth one last breath heave, but as a queen with seraph train, that little feet o'er aeons reign?